Hello everyone, welcome to today's episode of the Fountain of Life podcast. From the previous episode, we started asking ourselves, why is change so hard? Does it have to be so difficult to manage changes? Whether it's a good change or a bad change, it does have an effect on us. So why do we struggle with change? What can we do about it? Why don't you stay around for some few minutes as we delve deeper into how we can find our next steps when we are confronted with difficult life changes.
Lord, you are the fountain of life, restorer of my soul. I worship you today. Lord, you are the fountain of life, restorer of my soul. I worship you today. Lord, you are the fountain of life, restorer of my soul. Worship you today. Lord, you are the fountain of you restore my soul.
This is your host, Charles Zuta, and I welcome you once again to today's episode to continue discussing the subject, finding the next steps, how to deal with difficult life changes. To recap a bit from last week's episode, we saw that change can be really traumatic. It comes with fear, it comes with the unknown, it comes with trauma, and if we don't deal with it effectively, change can have a damaging effect on our lives. It can drive us into places that we don't want to go. Practically cripple us if we are not careful. Not because we can't deal with it, but we just don't know how to deal with change. So today we'll continue with part 2 of that discussion. And I want us to focus a bit on some of the things that we can do to avoid the damaging effect of difficult life changes. Be it job loss, loss of a loved one, marriage breakdown, all sort of hard things that hit us as people. And in today's episode, I'll also try to link us up with what or how we can do life with God, even through those difficult moments in change. You see, one of the first things that we can do when change hits us, maybe you might have heard this already from therapist or somebody who has tried to help you navigate difficult changes. The first thing that you need, or we all need to do, is to try to be kind to ourselves when we're going through difficult life changes. And this is important because when we are caught up, in that whirlwind of emotions, the unknown, the fear, the lack of predictability, and everything that the change induces in our lives, the trauma and all of that, we tend to neglect our own well-being. It's okay to lock yourself in a room and cry. Please, by all means, cry. That gives you release. It's okay to be angry with the circumstances and all those emotions that are pent up within you. But when it's all said and done, we need to find a place to be kind to ourselves. For instance, maybe you suffered a devastating loss, one way or the other. It is very normal when you dwell on those negative emotions to get into that negative bias where you see everything through the lens of, it's negative, and guilt comes flooding in, and we bury our heads in that guilt. And sometimes the answer or the solution that we try to use to address that negative bias and all of it may even end up perpetuating the problem that we are facing. Maybe some resort to drugs, some may resort to self-harm, cut themselves off from society and just get into a bubble where they are feeding constantly, on that negative emotion that has come in. And then throw in all the, poor adjustments that may also come in because we are not able to deal with the situation very well. We lash out and all of those negative things that come because we are dealing with a difficult life change. The first key out that I'll talk about is to try to be kind to yourself. What does it mean to be kind to yourself? That is, we will have to get to that place where we practice self-care. Because sometimes when people go through these difficult life changes and they don't know how to, they totally neglect themselves. They perhaps sometimes adopt habits that are detrimental to their well-being, do drugs, go into promiscuity, bury their heads in alcohol and all. That is not helping ourselves. So what can we do, to help ourselves? Because when you are stronger, when you're emotionally stable, you can be able to think straight. You can be able to see the hands that are reaching out to you to pull you up, out of that difficult circumstance. So self-care and being kind to yourself is really crucial. A crucial step to help you to find your way out of that dark place, that dark zone that you are in. So you don't want to get into complete self-neglect. Some people get that way. Maybe they just lock themselves, they don't eat. They may not even take a shower. They just neglect themselves. That won't help us to find our next steps in life. That is rather pushing us into that dark place that change has induced. I want us to go to the Bible because in spite of everything that the therapists and, all the other good people who are trying to help us may tell us, I want us to connect to the biblical facts because ultimately we are, as people of faith, the primary objective of this podcast is to help us to find strength through the Bible, through our relationship and our faith with God to deal with life circumstances. So I'm going to stay true to that vision and that goal or reason for having these episodes or having this podcast. There is a scripture in John before we come to the model that we'll use to help us address the issue of dealing with change. I want us to lay the foundation, and is this. In John chapter 15 verse 5, Jesus said emphatically, I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him bears much fruit. For without me, you can do nothing. I'm stressing the last bit. It says, for without me, you can do nothing. So, when we are trying to get out of the throes of a difficult life change, one of the things that we need to recognize as people of faith, or even if you don't have faith or you are a baby in this journey, you need to recognize that you are not on your own. Yes, you own a lot of the decisions that are going to be made with regards to helping yourself out of this situation. But ultimately, we have an insurance policy with God. And that is, He guarantees our well-being. So we need to unclench our fist and take the hands of God. So when we are talking about practicing self-care, one of the things that we have to do is to try to reinvigorate our faith. That is to recognize that I'm not in this alone. God is with me. And so instead of showing God off and blaming the church, blaming everybody that has come close to you, don't include God in that category. Rather, recognize the fact that we need to stay in Christ in order to bear fruit. Bearing fruit is finding your feet and thriving in life. You see. So we all need to keep that faith connection in the midst of that change. Whether it's a loss of a job, loss of a loved one, marriage breakdown, financial catastrophe, whatever it is, get back to your faith. That is, God is the one who will help you to bear fruit again. He is the one without whom you can do nothing. So you need to recognize that right away. Now let us go to the model that I've wanted to use to help us to understand how to navigate difficult life changes as a child of God or as a person of faith. Because there's nothing new under the sun, People in the Bible have gone through difficult changes. They've suffered loss. And so how did they do it? Even Jesus himself. For a while, we hear of his father, Joseph. And then we don't hear about him anymore. Did Joseph die? We don't know. So things happen. The Bible writers don't tell us a lot more about the mundane things that go on in their lives. You see. So we are not alone. You are not the first person to go through difficult life change. People in the Bible went through it. You see. So there are lessons that we can learn from there to help us to be able to deal with difficult life, whatever that changes, and the trauma that comes with it, and the pain that comes with it. Okay? Now let us look at this model that I'm talking about in John chapter 21. The Bible says, after these things, after what things? Okay? After these things, after what things? That is, Jesus had been crucified, the disciples have scattered, and then he has begun to show himself to the disciples. So these are really difficult times for them. Really difficult times for them. So that is what he's talking about. After these things. It says, after these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias. And in this way, he showed himself. Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Canaan in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and two others of his disciples were together. Simon Peter said to them, I'm going fishing. And they said to him, we are going with you also. They went out and immediately got into the boat, and that night they caught nothing. You see, when I was looking at the subject of change and I was reading this, it fit everything that people go through, this whole narrative from here, from verse 1 all the way through to verse 15, it fits the narrative of how people deal with difficult life changes. Now let us look closer at Peter. 1, he had betrayed Jesus 3 times. Even though Jesus told him, dude, you are going to betray me. Peter said, no. Even if I'll have to die with you, I'm going to do it. He swore vehemently. Jesus told him, before the cock will crow 3 times today, you have betrayed me 3 times. And Peter denied Jesus. 3 times. He denied Jesus. Told him, I don't know him. Come on, I don't know this person. And when it happened and the cock crowed and Jesus turned and looked at Peter, Peter felt the gaze of God going right through his soul, and the guilt was tremendous. And he goes away so miserable. Then Jesus rises, and comes to them intermittently. Imagine these disciples, imagine them at this point. They had given up businesses. They had given up their lives with a strong hope that one day, Jesus is going to establish something big and mighty, and they are going to have stability and security, and everything is just going to be nice and great. This was the man who was raising the dead, opening the eyes of the blind. Now he's dead. Imagine being in Peter's shoes. What kind of hope are you going to have? So here he is, torn and ravished by guilt. He sees his life, there's no future. So this is a big change from the normal. The 3.5 years that they've had was so secure. They never needed money. They never needed anything. If it was food, Jesus called it from heaven. If it was money, they took it out of the mouth of a fish. There were people who were sponsoring their ministry, and everything was good. Suddenly, it's all taken away. And not just taken away, you are left with a deep sense of betrayal. Everything you've worked for, it's all gone. Just like that, poof, it's gone. That is change. That is what we're talking about. This is the adverse effects of change. You see. And a lot of times it's like that. We build that sense of security. We build that sense of stability and predictability. That is what we all want as people. And then we are suddenly entrusted into the unknown. And so, if you were in Peter's shoes, what will you do? Go after all. There's no direction. I'm sure they'll be asking themselves, now what next? Where do I go from here? Do I go back to fishing? What? There's no going forward and there's no going back. He's caught in limbo. Everything he's worked for suddenly goes up in smoke. There's no clear plan forward. But is that really the case? That is where the faith bit comes in. Is that really the case? So Peter does what maybe we are advising, me being maybe a minister or maybe a therapist or somebody trying to advise or counsel you. Tell you, be kind to yourself. Practice self-care. So maybe for a long time, these disciples are just gathered, reminiscing over some of the things that they've lost and the insecurities and the things that are coming up, the fear of persecution, and all that the change has thrown at them. There they were. And out of the blue, Peter says, I'm going fishing. This is what we're talking about as self-care. He didn't say, I'm going soul winning, evangelizing, I'm going church building. He says, I'm going fishing. Why fishing? Because that is Peter's comfort zone. He is a fisherman. That is the familiar territory. That is the place where he finds solace. That is the situation that he has control over. Fishing. He's a fisherman. He's a professional. So when we're going through difficult life changes, as part of self-care is to try and rebuild that routine. Find a place to find joy in living again. Peter wants to find joy. He has that that solace, the place where he finds comfort, where he's in control. You see, when life difficult circumstances hit us, we can lock ourselves in a room and cry and do all sorts of those things. But when it's all said and done, we need to move to that place where we do our lives again. That is the first step that we need to take. It's okay to grieve that loss. It's okay to, mourn over that huge financial loss, or to mourn over that breakdown in that marriage. It's okay. But when it's all said and done, get out and date again. When it's all said and done, go back and start writing those job applications again. When it's all said and done, go fishing, as it were. Peter was trying to do something for himself. Question is that really the ultimate? We don't know. We will soon find out as we continue in these discussions. But the bottom line is that he tried to do something for himself. He could have stayed with all that guilt. He could have stayed with all that frustration and that pain. But he said, I'm going fishing. I don't know where you are sometimes or where we are, but it helps. The first steps that we can do is to try to find the joy in living again. Is to try to go back to doing the things that we were doing. It might not look the same, but it's worth the effort. Because one of the things that scares us in change is the effort it takes to retrace our steps and to find opportunity, and to find the strength to take the first step. People may tell you, oh, let's move on from here. But if you can't find the first steps, how do you move? So one of the first things is to start that mental war, to try to practice self-care, not to neglect yourself. And one of the things in practicing self-care is making every effort to find the joy in living. Peter said, I'm going fishing. Maybe for some of us, it might not be fishing. It might be joining our self-help group, volunteering again. It might mean taking that cooking classes. It might mean connecting with somebody that you haven't known in a long time, or you haven't connected with in a long time, just to rebuild conversation. But I also want you to notice something before we close on today's episode. He was there with his friends, his associates. Thomas the twin, Nathaniel of Cana, the sons of Zebedee. These were the people he was hanging out with before baby Jesus came on the scene. And even after Jesus came on the scene, they still hang out together. So when he said, I'm going fishing, they said to him, we are going with you also. That is a sense of community. Community supports, they encourage, they build together, they stand together. I know sometimes it's difficult to connect with people under some circumstances. I remember about 10 years ago, my job was cut for some strange reasons. I'm not going to go into a lot of that. But the good thing is that the company was generous enough to help me to land on my feet, as it were. But I play soccer on Mondays, and this thing happened just like that on Monday. That Monday evening, I told myself, you know what? Even though I've just lost my job and I have all this cloud of uncertainty hanging around me, where do I go from here? How do I pay my mortgage, health insurance, and all the emotional trauma that comes with sudden changes? I told myself, I will still go and play soccer. That day I played my best soccer with my friends. Nobody knew. I didn't tell anybody what had happened or what my next steps are going to be. But I knew that if I stayed at home, I'll be emotionally scarred. I'll be emotionally traumatized. It's going to lead to me cutting off from people. So I went out and I played soccer. My friends laughed, had fun, came back home. But, I had a clearer mindset and I felt free in my heart. Fear didn't dominate my life. And I felt, look, I can do this. So, being able to master that courage and that strength to tell yourself, I want to live life again. I want to have fun. I want to go out and do stuff. I don't want to just lock myself in the room and mourn and weep and just shut myself down. I want to find the joy of living again. That is the first step that we need to take. Practicing self-care. Get back to some structure. Reconnect with your friends. Don't cut yourself. Peter went with his friends. And look very carefully. I know sometimes some trauma or some circumstances might mean readjusting the friendship. For instance, if it's a divorce situation and, maybe acrimonious divorce and suddenly, friends are taking sides and the conversation is getting some way. It becomes difficult to retain some of those friends. As we are seeing here, Peter was not there with the 12, all of them. He was there with some people he was comfortable with. So I clearly understand. Sometimes it might mean re-engineering your circle of friends because the circumstance brings that kind of change that is needed. Because the last thing you want is to have people come and condemn you or come and heap more guilt on you. So, whilst you might want to filter the kind of friends that you have, keeping friends is important as part of that self-help, that self-care that you do. Peter said, I'm going fishing. He said, I'm going. He didn't say, come on guys, this is my quiet moment. Please give me some space. He allowed them in. He welcomed them into. He said he's going fishing. He may have his reasons for wanting to go fishing, but he didn't stop his friends from being in that zone with him. I'm going to pause here for today. Hopefully, God willing, we'll take it up to continue to look at the hand of God when we go through change. Why it's important to listen to what Jesus said in John 15 when he says that without me, you can do nothing. Because even in the midst of this crisis, he was there with them. And that is a fact that we need to know of going through change and how we can find our next steps. Maybe it's about time you told yourself, man, it's been a long time since I went for a walk because of what I'm going through. Go out, look at the sun, enjoy the birds and the wind. Do something. Love yourself again. Do self-care. Be kind to yourself, even in the midst of that change. Thank you so much, and may God richly bless you. If you don't subscribe to this podcast, I encourage you to do it. Just hit the subscribe button and then share the link with your friends. If this has been a blessing to you, I encourage you to also download the episodes on Amazon, Spotify, Google, and all the places where you get your good podcast. And most importantly, write to us. Let us know how this episode is helping. Leave a comment, and I believe that we will respond and share more with you. May God richly bless you. See you again next week.
Fountain of my life, I worship you today. Lord, only you are. Yes, Lord. You restore my soul. I worship you today. Yeah.
The book of Matthew 11:12. 28-29. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest